Ladies and gentlemen, hello, this is Debo over at Land Say Go, and we are now at day 3 of War of the Spark spoilers. Now, I'm going to be butchering some of these names, so please bear with me. Now we have another Planeswalker spoil today. We have Yang, Yong, Wild Crafter, 2 and a green for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has tap, add 1 mana of any color. So basically it has a Rishkar effect that allows us to turn all of our creatures into a Birds of Paradise that have a +1/+1 counter, and it does facilitate this ability by having a -1 to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Now this guy's going to be really good. He's going to see a lot of play in something like Elves or maybe something with Rhythm of the Wild in it. Any other synergies to be able to put counters on things, I think Yong is going to have a really good spot there. Now speaking of counters, he has Maui Loyal Companion sitting there right next to him for 3 and a green for a 3/3 legendary creature Hound. Now this is another legendary creature that's an uncommon. We saw that in Dominaria, so that's kind of neat to see that return. Now this creature has Trample and Vigilance, and then if one or more +1/+1 counters would be placed on Maui, you put that many +1 counters on it instead. So it kind of has like that hardened scales effect built into it. And so I think Maui is going to see a lot of play alongside Yang, especially since Yang would come down first, Maui would come down second, and then Yang can -1 to put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, basically making it a 5/5 Trampler with Vigilance on turn 4. It'll be pretty great. Next up, we do also have a new Neheb creature, Neheb Dreadhorde Champion, 2 red for a 5/4 legendary creature zombie Minotaur Warrior. Now, I think this card's pretty pushed. It's a 5/4 with Trample, and whenever Neheb Dreadhorde Champion deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you may discard any number of cards. If you do, you draw that many cards, and then you add that much red mana to your mana pool. And then until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. Now this is kind of an interesting rendition of Neheb. Now I think again, he is very pushed. He's got a great body, 5/4 for 4 with Trample. He has an amazing Wheel of Fortune effect that allows you to replace dead cards in your hand with new spells, as well as giving you additional mana in order to be able to power out some of those spells that you just drew into. So I do think he could see play alongside something like Experimental Frenzy that would want you to maybe filter some lands off the top of your deck, and you get some extra mana to be able to continually cast things from the top of your deck. He could see some play in there. Also, you could just see play in something like Jund Aggro or Rakdos Aggro, something like that. I think that Neheb is going to be very powerful. Also, don't discount that he's a zombie. We are seeing a lot of red and black zombies, so there could be a cool Rakdos zombie list that's coming up here, maybe even a Grixis one. Next up, we have Flipflip the Lost, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 legendary creature Homunculus. Commander players rejoice, we do have another legendary Homunculus for you to be able to build around your homunculi. Now, whenever Flipflip the Lost enters the battlefield, you draw a card. So it's really great, especially for commander players, to be able to have a card draw spell on your commander, especially when it enters the battlefield. So if you can flicker him a bunch of times, you get to draw a bunch of cards. It's gonna be really great. And then if he enters the battlefield from your library or was cast from your library, draw 2 cards instead. And then whenever he becomes the target of a spell, you shuffle him back into his owner's library. So this is gonna be really great in something like Experimental Frenzy, where you can cast him from the top of your library and take advantage of that draw too. Now in something like Modern, where you have Coco, you can play Collected Company, and this could be one of the cards that you get from the top of your library, and then also draw 2 cards off that. You could Court of Calling him. There's a bunch of different things that you could do with this guy. Even something like Kamal's Druidic Vow will be able to get you 2 cards off of this guy. He's gonna be really great. You could even play him in something like a Vorthos style strategy or a Boggle style strategy here in Standard, but you would use equipment instead of enchantments. And then that way, whenever they go to target him with removal, he then gets to get shuffled back into your library, and so you can always draw into him again and then be able to attach things to him. So that might be an interesting way to play around him. I think Flipflip the Lost is going to see more play in something like combo or control. He could be just a decent 1/1 body for control players to be able to draw a card off of him, but definitely alongside Experimental Frenzy, watch out for this guy. We do have another zombie here. It is an uncommon, Eternal Taskmaster, 1 and a black for a 2/3. He enters the battlefield tapped, and then whenever he attacks, you can pay 2 and a black. If you do, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. Now he's probably going to be more limited fodder, but he is a 2/3 body for 2, so he shouldn't be discounted just yet. However, I think we have more impactful spells that are in that 2-drop slot. Something like Grave Marshal would fit really well, and something like Zombies. This is another way for you to be able to get zombies back from the graveyard, but I don't know if he's going to be powerful enough to make the cut. Next up, we do have another rare zombie, and this one is Dreadhorde Arcanist. It's a 1 and a red for a 1/3 with trample, and he's a zombie wizard. And then whenever Dreadhorde Arcanist attacks, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost less than or equal to Dreadhorde Arcanist power from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So what I actually really like about this card is that you can play a pump spell, say something like Giant Growth, which is also being reprinted in the set as well. You give him +3/+3 before combat, and then as you swing in, you can then target the Giant Growth again, give him another +3/+3. Now all of a sudden he's a 7/9 with trample swinging in. Now if you don't want to be using pump spells with him, you could also be using him for your card advantage. So you could opt and then swing in and then get a free opt off of him, or let's say you've already been able to give him a +1/+1 counter from some other means, or pump him up with something like Adelays. So let's say Adelays is a perfect example. Let's say you have an Adelays out along with him, since they're both wizards, and you cast a Charted Course and you're able to pump up your team, and then you swing in, and now that he's a 2/4, you can then target that Charted Course again and draw an additional 2 cards. I think that Dreadhorde Arcanist is going to see play in a couple of different places. You could definitely see some play in zombies, but he's probably going to see more play in the wizard tribal strategy. You could also have some play in something like a Jund pump spell deck. We have a lot of pieces for that, and I think he could fit really well there. Next, we also got Dreadhorde Butcher. For a black and a red, we have a 1/1 zombie warrior, again another zombie that's in red, with haste. And then whenever Dreadhorde Butcher deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on Dreadhorde Butcher. When Dreadhorde Butcher dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Now again, this kind of goes back to that same strategy I was talking about with the Arcanist. Maybe you're playing him in like a Jund pump strategy. So you're able to pump him up with some of your spells. You swing in with your Arcanist, you can then exile another pump spell to then pump this guy up. You're constantly getting in damage. You can get damage in on turn 2 to be able to pump him up even further. And then if he happens to die in combat, you could even do tricksy things by pumping him up and then dealing a huge amount of damage to your opponent or planeswalker, or so a creature that they control. I think Dreadhorde Butcher is going to see a lot of play in something like a Jund aggro strategy or a black-red zombie strategy, maybe even Grixis zombies, and I think he's good. I think you're going to be able to find a lot of play with him in something even as simple as like a Mardu sacrifice strategy based around Judith, this guy, and that new Celebrant card that we got. Grim Initiate. For a single red, we get a 1/1 with First Strike, and then whenever he dies, you amass 1, so you get another 1/1. It's kind of interesting that we actually have a single red zombie, but I think that this guy's going to see some play in Constructed. He's a pretty decent 1-drop, and he'll definitely see some play in Limited as well. Gleaming Overseer. For 1 blue and a black, we have another uncommon 1/4 zombie wizard. So now we're going into the blue-black zombies here. When Gleaming Overseer enters the battlefield, you amass 1. So now here's another thing where you can either pump up one of your army tokens, or you get another 1/1 army. Again, this is probably going to see more play in something like Limited. However, in Constructed, I could maybe see the case for playing this card. You'd get 2 bodies out of it, and then you could always pump them up by playing a Lord or something like that. And lastly, we also got a Fairies Time Twist. For 1 in a blue, we have an instant. Exile target permanent you control. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step, and if it enters the battlefield as a creature, it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. This again, it says target permanent, so you can target anything that your opponent tries to kill. So if they try to Assassin's Trophy something, you can always exile it away and it comes back. Either way, it's kind of nice to have an effect like this, especially when they can target a permanent you control. But we do now have several of these types of effects that allow you to flicker thing that's on the battlefield. Maybe we can figure out some sort of a flicker strategy to be able to get some really interesting like tempo plays with it all. Well folks, that's all we have for you today. Again, this was day 3 of War of the Spark spoilers. There's definitely going to be more coming out tomorrow. You can always expect us to have another video here for you. Feel free to visit us over at www.landsego.com. We look forward to hearing from you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow.